Hi, I'm Mark Cunningham with Grace Property Management. We hear from more and more local real estate owners, and they're thinking about turning their property into a rental. Maybe they're going to move out, they want to keep that great interest rate, they don't want to sell it. So the question they're asking themselves after they decide that, yes, I'm going to turn this into a rental, is simply, should I self-manage this or should I hire a property manager to help me? And this is not a right or wrong question. For some people, the answer is yes, you should hire a professional property manager. For other folks, the answer may be no. Go ahead and you have the ability and the qualifications to self-manage that property. So if you're just trying to determine what's the best decision for you, here's just a couple things to keep in mind to hopefully help you bring some clarity into this important decision for you. One of the most common things we hear around the idea that people say, gosh, I want to manage it myself. And then they think, well, the reason I want to self-manage it, because all the rules that apply if I hire a professional property manager don't apply to me if I self-manage my property, right? And unfortunately, no. All the rules apply equally. So whether we as a licensed property management company, real estate sales company, if you have us manage a property, there's a lot of rules we have to follow federally, locally, and almost all of those rules equally apply to you if you're just going to rent out your property that is down the street and you want to self-manage the property. So some of the common things that we see landlords who are self-managing not be aware of that you want to make sure you understand if you're going to self-manage are the following. For example, did you know that the maximum amount of security deposit you can collect on your property is no more than 2 times the amount of the rent? That's a law. If you start to charge more than that, you're going to get yourself in trouble. So if that's a common mistake we see self-managing landlords make. The property is going to rent for $1,000 a month and they ask for a $3,000 security deposit. That's illegal. You cannot do that. That rule applies to you, self-managing, as well as to me as a professional property management company. Also, which applies to you as well as to me, you must accept from an applicant a portable tenant screening report. What's a PTSR? We've got lots of information on our website. You can learn what a PTSR is, what it's not, how to process it. But what that means is if you put your property for rent and you list it online and put it on Craigslist and on Zillow and someone comes to you to apply and they have their own portable tenant screening report, say, hey, here's my background, here's my screening report. You have to accept that. You have to process that. You can't charge them an application fee. And if you do not accept it, or if you do charge them an application fee when you shouldn't have, you're going to get yourself in a lot of financial and legal trouble. So just be aware that if an applicant comes and they have that, you must accept it, whether you're self-managing or whether you're like us, a professional property management. Lease agreements are very important. What you cannot do if you're going to self-manage is Google lease agreement Colorado and then download some lease agreement, because the law in the last few years has been very, very specific on things that you must have inside of your lease agreement, as well as specific language that is directly prohibited from lease agreements. Language that used to be very, very common is no longer allowed in Colorado lease agreements. And that again is whether you self-manage or whether you have a professional property management doing that for you. So the lease language has to be specific. Some of the lease language has to be in Spanish. Make sure your lease is up to date if you're self-managing your property. Number 4, you have to be very, very aware, and this is new and important, of the maintenance repair timelines that now apply in Colorado. If your tenant contacts you with a repair request that falls under certain categories, you have a clock that starts ticking on how quickly you must respond and how quickly you must have that repair made. And if you don't have that repair made within the proper amount of time, once again, you can be financially liable to the tenant if the repairs haven't been made properly. So maintenance and repairs and habitability is a very, very big deal. And last thing that we find from prospective owner clients who think, I want to self-manage because then I won't have to take housing. If a tenant calls me and says, hey, I'm a subsidized tenant, I'm on Section 8, which is commonly referred to, I work with a government program on housing, I think as a landlord I can say, I don't accept that. That's not legal. You are required by law to accept all types of housing vouchers and payments. So if you hire us, we have to accept those. And if you're going to self-manage, you have to accept those. You're required by law to accept those as an option for the tenant's income. Now, these are just a couple things scratching the surface that way, that if you're going to self-manage, you need to be aware of, and then 3 quick things that you can kind of regulate yourself on to help you determine whether or not you should self-manage. We recommend that you make sure, if you're going to self-manage your property, number one, you need to be knowledgeable. You need to understand the things we just talked about. You need to understand the laws, fair housing. You need to understand the compliance aspect of things, because that's a very, very big deal. What are you going to do if the tenant says, hey, I want to bring in a service animal? Well, there are very clear guidelines you should follow, and you have to understand all those things so you don't get yourself in legal trouble. Number 2, you need to have the proper temperament. We get calls regularly from owner clients who are self-managing, and they say something like, I've been self-managing this property and it's going okay with my tenant, but they're paying late sometimes, and I can't take it anymore. I'm losing my temper with these folks. You've got to have the proper temperament in dealing with tenants and dealing with vendors and dealing with governmental regulations, making sure if it's in Denver, you have your property properly licensed. If it's in the city of Denver, we didn't talk about that, but that's something else that's there. So make sure that you have the temperament and you have the time to do that, the time to advertise, the time to show the property, the time to respond to the tenant if they call you at 3 a.m. when the water heater went out, because water heaters only go out between 3 and 4 a.m. on Friday and Saturday nights. So you got to make sure you answer that call to make sure those things are done. So those are just a couple considerations to help you determine whether or not it's best for you to self-manage your property or hire a property management company. There are, of course, costs involved of hiring a property management company. You want to be aware of that. If you're considering hiring a property management company, you may want to look at the next video we have after this, which is questions to ask to help you determine whether a property management company is a good fit for you. There's a lot of property management companies in Denver. A lot of them do a great job, some not so much. So there are some questions you should ask, but if we can be a resource, jump on our website at rentgrace.com. Happy to help if we can.